Welcome. This is Jason, Truth Authority, and I'm back right here live with you on YouTube. And we're going to discuss none other than the Idaho 4 case. I like to say sometimes it's the craziest, wildest true crime case, I think, maybe of all time. Yeah, it's that crazy, my friends. And one of the reasons why I think it's insanely crazy, because we were told that all four students were stabbed, right? Unalived, as YouTube likes to say. When in fact, the real truth of this case, my friends, when you connect the dots, legally, I sometimes have to say my opinion, but the facts back it up, my friends, that the students are actually alive. Yeah. Kaylee, the beautiful, vivacious Kaylee Gonzalez, the beautiful, vivacious Madison Mogan, the beautiful, vivacious, Xander Canoodle, and the handsome 6'3", 6'4", powerful Ethan Chapman, my friends. Nobody took them out. No Brian Kohlberger stabbed them. No gangbangers were able to take out a hit, even though, yes, some of them, these students may very well have been targeted. I think one of the girls potentially probably opened their lips a little bit and said too much. But regardless, my friends, there is no way, in my view, and I've said this in many interviews, no way a hit could have got carried out, because it's very simple, my friends. Even Steve G told you this, and I normally don't trust Kaylee Gonzalez's father, Steve G. I think he's just working for the feds as all part of this cover-up, my friends. The guy doesn't cry in his interviews over his beautiful daughter. He just goes on and on. He claims that his daughter, remember, he feeds you the horse shit that his daughter's nose was broken. And it's all part of the Psyop, my friends, I believe, right? This highly emotionally charged narrative. And then the feds have his daughter involved with this. Steve G's wife is involved. And it's all to hoodwink you, my friends, in my view. It's all to lie and deceive you. And it's so obvious, in my opinion, my friends. And it took me the first year and a half, I actually bought into the Psyop, like many of us out there, right? The first thought is, well, I guess the CIA through corporate media and the U.S. Marshals over there, they're telling us the truth, and the students were stabbed, and, it's tragic, right? But my friends, again, you just connect the dots and open your eyes. None of us even saw body bags, right? No leaked raw crime scene footage either. Again, my friends, I'll keep repeating this live. Did any of you see body bags to show that those students were actually stabbed to death, as we've been told, again, by the intelligence agencies, the FBI, the CIA, using Law and Crime Network on YouTube, by the way, who we're going to expose today, my friends, because I'm a little fed up with them on this case especially. We didn't see body bags, right? No raw crime scene footage, which is unheard of in high-profile cases these days, my friends. If you think about it logically, everybody, and again, looking throughout history, if those students were really unalived, if there was really a real crime scene, we would have got leaked raw crime scene footage. I mean, come on, even the 911 call, students would have been taking pictures of the bodies. You know this, right, everyone? Not to mention mainstream media. The likes of Law and Crime Network and Nancy Grace, Ashley Banfield. They would have got a lot leaked crime scene footage, my friends, and of the bodies or autopsy photos. But none of it happened, my friends, because it didn't happen. This crime, there was no crime on November 13, 2022, my friends, because in the cover of darkness, those feds did what they called an extraction removal operation. I have no doubts in my mind now, but these are my opinions, but the facts back it up, my friends, and I want to know what you guys think. I got Azana Shahi says, what's up? Sorry if I butchered your name. I hope I didn't. Hello. By the way, everyone, can anybody show me how I can give a thumbs up to your comments? I no longer can do this when I go live. Azana Aji, he's cooking his live after all. He is fucking cooking his live after all. Does that mean I'm finally doing a live? Is that what you mean? What are you yapping about? Connor Shepard says. Well, I'll tell you what I'm yapping about. This beautiful family, as one person puts it here. The most beautiful thing in the world is family because it's made of love. I totally agree. But Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapman, Xander Canoodle, these beautiful students, my friends, this should be celebrated. The real truth of this case, in my view, is they're alive. And I'm not the only one who's mentioned it. But very, very few people actually want to go there. They don't have the courage, apparently. There's a lot of grifters on this case of the IDAHO4. But I'm not going to name them all today, my friends. There are very few. But Law and Crime Network, they're run by the CIA, it looks like, or FBI, the intelligence community. I mean, come on, folks. We can't trust them. Law and Crime Network, they're trying to convince you seemingly that Brian Koberger stabbed all four, right? They tell you thousands and thousands of times in the last couple of years that this crime took place. No, it didn't. There's no evidence to show the students were unalive, my friends. There's absolutely no evidence to show you a crime scene took place other than the staging, right? The cops had some crime scene tape. But as I discuss in my videos, everyone, by and large at times, the forensic investigators, they didn't even treat that like a real health hazard, which we know it would have been if all four students were really stabbed, right? Viciously stabbed. Because that's what we're being told over and over again, right, my friends? This horseshit. They're viciously stabbed. You know, Xana, some people say she was stabbed 30, 35 times. You get that in corporate Law and Crime Network, I believe. Kaylee Gonzalez stabbed at least, 35, 38 times. Her sister's claiming that, excuse me, my nose is itchy. Olivia Gonzalez, right? I'm sure she's a nice person overall. But I believe she's lying to you on purpose, my friends. It's so obvious in my view, right? She keeps saying over and over that, Kaylee was killed. And now she's saying that in a recent video, I think she said, or maybe it wasn't a recent video, I don't know. But she said that she's being told that, what was the word she used? Not tortured, but, now I forget, my friend. She was describing the knife wounds. It's all lies, my friends. In my opinion, Olivia Gonzalez, she absolutely knows her lovely sister is alive. Probably living a beautiful beach lifestyle. I would guess anywhere around the world, if I were to guess, it is a guess. But the United States, my friends, they have a WITSEC program. That's WITEC. That's the Federal Witness Security Program in the United States, folks. Okay? Where they relocate your identities, right? That you go by a different name. They relocate confidential informants, etc., my friends. And they have the infrastructure literally in places like beautiful Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, that's it. Or they could be even Costa Rica, right? But so the good news is, again, everyone, they are alive. And that's what I try and show in my videos. Again, I didn't come up with this theory from the get-go. You have to connect the dots first, my friends, right? And once you do, it's so obvious, folks. And just look at the interviews of the family members, my friends, the parents. Do you really believe what they're saying? Do you really believe Steve G when he's telling you his daughter was stabbed to death? I mean, again, everyone, I know everybody grieves differently. We all know this. It's been said a million times, everyone. But this is beyond the pale. This Steve G never cries, right? I believe him and his wife are told to try to act in despair and at times angry. It's all a big psyop, my friends. And we're going to define what a psyop is today. Outcast420 says, super, my friend. Hello, Outcast. I want to give you a thumbs up, but it doesn't give me, on my lives here, it doesn't give me a way to do that. I don't know why. Hi, Outcast420. How are you, dude? I can't wait to do an interview with me. With you. Yes. And thank you for making that really comedic video, making me as a baby, but with my voice, talking about J. Embry Pavarotti, and exposing him. And then you had Mr. Pavarotti as a baby, too. That was hilarious. And I could tell you found it funny, too, Outcast420. You found it funny the way I was addressing Mr. Embry Pavarotti. See, my friends, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation agents, by the way, on this case. So be very, very careful, everyone. And you can know, though, I'm not a misinformation, disinformation specialist, because the truth of the matter, my friends, anybody can know this now. When you connect the dots and you dig in on this case and you just look at USC Code 31 Witzik, this whole state, this is a staged crime scene, my friends, from the get-go. Again, my opinions. There's no doubt about it. And what is USC Code 31 Witzik, my friends? And what does that allow the feds to do? I'm one of the very few people to discuss this, folks. There was one person that beat me to it on YouTube. He did a good job. USC Code 31 Witzik. It literally allows the federal government, my friends, the feds, okay? They can legally stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. Did you hear that, my friends? I'm going to repeat that one more time. The USC Code 31 Witzik allows the feds to stage a violent event if a confidential informant's been compromised. And everybody in this case that has researched this case extensively, or almost everybody, we've heard it over and over again, right? There was most likely a confidential informant living at 1122 King Road, right? Whether it be Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, or Xander Canuto, or maybe Ethan Chapman, or maybe even one of the two survivors, right? Bethany Funk, Dylan Morrison, right? But somebody, I believe, was a confidential informant. Most likely, I think we can infer that. And they probably spoke a little, they probably blew their cover. And then, so the U.S. Marshals, my friends, I was trying to say this earlier. We know that they had surveillance all over the neighborhoods. We know they had surveillance all over the house. And how do we also know that? Not only could you see U.S. Marshals all over the place and undercover cops that night and leading up to and afterwards. We see that on video evidence. But Steve G., the father, who I normally don't trust, but he told you the truth, my friends. In 2 interviews, he told you the feds had surveillance on that house, or he said around the house. So how could gangbangers or cartel members, how could they go into that house without the U.S. Marshals knowing what was going on? How could they go in and do an atrocity of 4 unalivings, of stabbings? It doesn't happen, my friends, because the U.S. Marshals would do their due diligence and they would have done an extraction removal operation. All staging, my friends, and get those students the hell out of there. They would do their jobs. I give the feds credit in this regard, my friends. And that's what happened. That's why you didn't see body bags, my friends. That's why we never saw body bags coming out of that house, my friends. That's why you never saw, I believe, this is my opinions, everyone, but this is why you never saw a public ceremony. Because whenever you have an extraction removal operation, my friend, right, you can't exhume the body because the people are alive. It's all staging. So you're never going to have an open casket public ceremony. Now, people will say, well, Jason, all 3 students, 3 of them were cremated and Ethan Chapman family had a funeral. Yes. But again, my friends, the cremation of Xander Canuto, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, that's not just a coincidence, my friends. No, I believe they're alive. And that's why they try to make it out that they were cremated. And Ethan Chapman's family, my friends, they had a private funeral service, right? Sure as hell wasn't open public casket ceremony, my friends. So it all leads up to, my friends, that this was an extraction removal. The students are out of the country. They are protected under the WITSEC program. Again, Federal Witness Security Program. And that's that, my friends. Everything else is it's just a huge psyop. Psychological Operation 101, baby. Azana says, why are you yapping so long to ignore public questions? Well, I'm not ignoring questions. I don't even see any questions coming in. Please ask me the questions. I see statements. Try to pronounce my name. I'm trying. Azana, or it's Azan. I'm sorry. I see Azana, and then it's Haikh. Azanshik, Azanshi, Azanshi. Is that it? Azanshi? I hope I got it. I'm really sorry. I'm just not used to Azanshi. I hope so. Thank you for being here on the live, Azan. Azanshi. Oh, she's writing her name down for me again. Azan Shahai. Azan Shahai? I hope I got it. Maybe we'll have to discuss on Facebook, you and I, so I make sure I get your name correct. If I still have not, I'm so sorry. I gotta go. Oh, I understand. But thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. I know many of you have been fascinated with the IDAHO4. There may be some new people new to this case as well, and I welcome you. I hope you subscribe to my channel as well, hopefully, and give me that thumbs up. Hit the bell icon to be notified for future videos. Feel free to leave me a comment. Tell me where you're from, what country you're from, right? I'm not sure if Azan Shahi, if that person's in Canada or the United States. Is it a female or male? I don't know. Azan sounds like a woman, I think. Thank you for being here. So, does anyone have any questions? I'm looking here. I don't see any questions yet. Connor says ESP. Let's see here. So again, my friends, you know, the disappointment with a lot of YouTubers, there's some very good ones as well, great channels, don't get me wrong. But so many people, they seem to be grifting. They go on all these crazy, wild speculations, and then, sometimes they'll bring up the extraction removal operation theory, which is great, but then they hop onto other theories that have no validity to it, my friends. The fact of the matter is, my friends, there's no evidence at all to show a crime took place. And if you have any doubts, my friends, just using reason, logic, common sense on this statement, you had 2 survivors, 2 women alive that are still in the public. Well, they're not so much in the public eye, but, I'm referring to Bethany Funk, right? And, Dylan Mortison. So, why would any gangbangers or cartel members or a Brian Koberger, why would anybody risk going into that house, stabbing successfully, by the way, all 4 people, right? They were able to kill them all, viciously stabbing them over and over again. How could they do that and yet you would leave 2 roommates alive, untouched? That makes absolutely no sense. That never rang true, even from the beginning for me. But yet I still thought, well, I think the students, though, are stabbed to death because that's what we were told. But then again, my friends, we never, as time went on, we still never got any raw crime scene footage of the crime, right? We never saw the body bags coming out. They had that blood on the foundation of the house, the red, that we're supposed to believe is blood from the victims. That had me buying into the Psyop for the first year and a half. But then again, using reason, logic, common sense, my friends, and studying what a Psyop is, that was just all part of the staging, wasn't it, everyone? Right? And I think it was Birdie that said this and showed you too, that they would have removed, if that was real blood from victims, they would have removed that blood off the wall within days, my friends. When they were within the first week, forensic investigators. It's almost like it would be like a health hazard. I mean, come on, folks. This is how forensics works, but they didn't in this case. They needed you to see and make you think right in front of your eyes that, yeah, see, it's the victim's blood. No, that's all staging. It's all bullshit, my friends, in my opinion, okay? Because there is no other evidence to show you that a crime took place, my friends. None. And by the way, my friends, remember I told you that they didn't even treat it like a real health hazard? There was a staged crime scene. The forensic investigators, sometimes they wore gloves, right? And they wore the masks. But other times they didn't. And sometimes they didn't even wear the slippers, folks. The PPE gear, right? If it was a real crime scene, you better be assured, my friends, those forensic investigators, every single time going in and out of that house, they would have to wear proper PPE gear. And same with the cops. But many times the cops at times didn't have masks on their hands. And then, the boxes, my friends, as Bertie so and I think he got help with this with some of his research friends, that on the boxes, it says American Relocation Services when they were moving their shit out, my friends, right? Out of the house. And then the company went down, it looks like, within 24 hours. It disappeared. And more importantly, the parent company of American Relocation Services is called Sirva. Bertie mentioned this too. S-I-R-V-A. And yes, Sirva, they do regular moves. They move refrigerators. You can look on their site. But guess what, my friends? Bertie found out, I think he found this one part on his own, is that they got a Schedule 48, which allows them to work with the feds. They work with the feds. They will protect confidential informants. They will protect government officials. This is Sirva, my friends. That can't be a coincidence, can it? No, of course not. Of course not. And then Bertie even found out that the U.S. Marshal Office, they work with the U.S. Marshals, or it's close to the U.S. Marshal's office or something. It just on and on. It shows you it's a whole federal big operation, folks. Huge cover-up. Mrs. John Knapp says, Chapman and Ethan's cremated too, not buried. They said he is in their basement and can talk to him anytime they want. Jim the dad said, wow. That's wild. Let me read that comment again. According to Miss John Knapp, Chapman and Ethan cremated too, not buried. They said he is in their basement and can talk to him anytime they want. Jim the dad said, oh, they must be big time spiritual Christians. Those same parents, by the way, in an interview, remember, they told you they're not even angry. They weren't angry at, I guess, Brian Koberger. If they believe Brian Koberger did this crime, killed their son, they said they're not even angry. Are you kidding me? You're not angry at the person that stabbed to death your beloved second son? Are you kidding me? That makes no sense, right, folks? Because, in my opinion, they absolutely know that Ethan Chapman, here's the good news again, everyone. The Chapmans, they know Ethan's alive. They know they were extracted by the federal government, the U.S. Marshals, okay? Extraction, removal, operation. Extraction, removal, operation. That's what happened on November 13, 2022, folks, right? No doubt about it. And in my opinion. And by the way, my friends, Kaylee Gonzalez's mother, Christy Gonzalez, sometimes they tell you a little bit too much. You notice this? Because they talk so much, right? She said, she admitted to you that Kaylee Gonzalez photobombed her the day before this event, before this so-called atrocity, as Jay Embry always likes to say, right? Atrocity happened. Bullshit. Christy Gonzalez told you that Kaylee Gonzalez, her daughter, photobombed her the day before. Now, why do I bring that up again, my friends? I've brought it up many times in my videos. It's been said online as well, right? Because I thought it was interesting. I had a woman come on my actual Facebook, not here on YouTube, but on Facebook. And she said, you know, I have two daughters roughly the same age as Kaylee and Madison. She says, they have never photobombed me. She didn't believe that Kaylee would photobomb, or she didn't believe that, that it was just a coincidence that Kaylee gave all her photos to her mother. And on we go, my friends, with huge red flags in this case, right? For example, did Christy G and Steve G, did they get Kaylee's cell phone back, any of her electronics? Do you know the answer to that, folks? I'm asking you a question, and I'm going to wait for you for a few minutes here to write down the answer. Miss Joan Knapp says agreed. Thank you. Cool. Oh, Miss Joan Knapp says nope. What's nope? What do you say no to? And what do you agree? Miss Joan Knapp says, oh, it was the Dateline interview. Yeah, so apparently Joe Knapp, thank you, Joe Knapp. This person, she watched the Dateline interview with the Ethan Chapman's family. My friends, I'm telling you, these families are read in. They are working with the intelligence community, right? Elements of the FBI, U.S. Marshals, to continue this hideous psyop. I understand why the parents are doing it, I guess, because, you know, they're supposed to do this. Their children are alive. It's all part of the cover-up, right? They don't want to tell you the truth. that their kids are alive, that they weren't stabbed to death. We've been lied to, hoodwinked, my friends, in my opinion. They weren't stabbed to death. It's horse shit. Yeah, no electronics back, right? No phones back. Exactly. You know they would have got their phones back and the computer. Absolutely. But they couldn't have the phones back and computers. I'm sure infuriated the parents to some degree. Maybe that's why Christy G even mentioned it back in the early days of this case, right, folks? But from the Fed's point of view and the U.S. Marshals, my friends, they couldn't allow that to happen, right? They couldn't give the phone back because it would blow the whole case wide open. The whole world would find out from the electronics, from Christy G maybe, telling somebody, or Olivia would find out what was on Kaylee's phone. And then the next thing you know, again, everyone in the world knows, see what happened? See, the students, they said too much. They're alive. The Feds got them out of there. That's why Kaylee's given all her photos to her mother. So that's why I believe they didn't give the phone. That's one of the reasons that they didn't get the electronics back, fortunately. Yes, exactly. Miss Joan Knapp says government can do whatever they want. USPS, 100%. She said. Sharon Kostick says Kaylee's Apple Watch lost. Oh, thank you for that, Sharon. Is that right? Lost. Well, I think the Feds, I don't know how Kaylee could lose her phone. She either has it on her wrist, or it's on her counter in her house, or it's not, right? I think the Feds took her watch, her Apple Watch. They've got it all. I mean, I think they have to, right? Because even Christy G told you they didn't. The U.S. Marshals, they never gave back the phone to the parents. So Lisa says KG even said her calls, her phone also. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, and Joan Knapp, do you agree? Have you been thinking about this for some time? Do you strongly believe or are convinced that the students are in fact alive? Or do you, for some reason, believe that they're dead, unalived? And if you believe they're unalived, tell me why you believe the Feds on this. But I think I know which way you beautiful ladies are thinking here on this case. And again, I want to thank my buddy. I'm looking for him. Where is he? He's way up here. Thank you for all your amazing comments, folks. Oh no, I can't find my buddy here. His comment disappeared. Oh no. Maybe he'll come back on later. Oh shoot, I posed you guys a question earlier, you guys and gals, and I can't remember now what my question was. I'm all over the board now. Watch out for your male person. Your male person. What does that mean, Joe Knapp? What do you mean by that? Watch out for your male person. Hey, Sharon, do you think the students are alive or unalived? And Miss Joe Knapp. Miss John Knapp. Let me know. Let's see here. Government workers, Miss Joe Knapp. Government workers. Yes. Sharon says, 2 unalive, 2 alive. Oh, really? No, Sharon. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, sweetheart, but that's what some YouTube creators I notice also were trying to run with eventually. They would hop on all these different theories, didn't they? And some would say, I'm not going to mention their names, but they would say, oh, Xana Canuto, they got to Xana. They killed her, apparently on the street in front of the house, some would say. And then I think, and maybe, yeah, so they killed Xana and they got them out of there. They extracted those 2. They're alive. No, all 4 are gone. No cartel or gangbangers are going to kill Xana Canuto out front of the house and or Ethan Chapman. There'd be blood everywhere if it happened, folks, right? You would see evidence of it. is what I'm trying to say. That's just my first thoughts there. But Sharon, thank you for answering your question. My question, thank you for saying that. And you can, if you want, Sharon, tell me, who do you think are unalived? And the two are alive. Oh, Sharon goes, Ethan's gone. Ethan Zena gone. No, Sharon. Where's the evidence? Where's the real evidence to show you that Ethan and Zena were stabbed to death, unalive? Where's the evidence? There's nothing. There's no crime scene photos, raw crime scene photos. There's no body bags. There was no open public casket ceremony, right? Ethan Chapman had a private funeral service, man. They're alive. Trust me, Sharon. I have to disagree with you on that. But thanks for answering. Give me your opinions based on what you've researched, I guess, and heard and read. Miss Jo Knapp says, married to one. Married to one. Okay, you're married. Excellent. Oh, Mrs. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jo Knapp. I was saying Miss. Oh, man. I think I said it right. Anyway, thank you for being here, my beautiful people. Yeah, I see the word actors here. Exactly. Actors. You know, it's amazing. There's that, Pavarotti, right? He keeps saying that I believe part of his job, in my opinion, is to try to convince you that an atrocity happened, right? He said it at hundreds and doing all these hundreds of videos, and he claims, he solved the case, and all this nonsense. It's just, and that's why he won't interview somebody like myself, my friends. He doesn't interview anybody. I challenged him, my friends, even though I'm a much smaller channel. And the reason I'm smaller is because I don't do hundreds of videos on this case. He does, right? Anyway, but he won't interview me. He knows my channel would explode. He knows he'd lose, in my opinion, a lot of subscribers if he interviewed me, because I would show all the discrepancies of his theory and his nonsense, his information. I mean, he'll put out some true facts and information, he has to, but a lot of misinformation, disinformation, lies, in my opinion, everyone. And one of them being, he keeps telling you that an atrocity happened. And I used to support this guy. I know many, many people. Again, my friends, when you go hard and fast in a belief about something or someone, it's very difficult to turn away from that belief, right? That's just a fact of psychology. And, Mr. Pavarotti apparently knows this. He knows how it works. Anyway, he wears disguises. Exactly. Are you referring to Jay Embry, Mr. Pavarotti with his glasses, or somebody else? Big picture, the narrative itself, the coincidences, repetitive number names, the logical fallacies, it's all far too unrealistic. It is not based in reality. Exactly. Totally agree with you, Levon. I totally agree with you. Mrs. Jo Knapp 1 says, Witzik for sure. MHO. What does MHO mean, by the way? And thank you for that. Exactly. All four are protected under Witzik, my friends. This is reason, logic, common sense when you dig at this case, folks, right? And especially now, we're in 2025. This happened on November 13, 2022, my friends. When you just research the law, look at the law, folks. The United States have this all in place. The Witzik program to protect confidential informants, right? To protect government officials, for example, too, that may be in danger, right? And Bertie went over this. They have private drivers set up as well, folks. Depending on the threat level, the private drivers might even be armed, especially if it's a government official, but even sometimes confidential informants. This is all, and again, my friends, they can stage a violent event. This happens throughout history, my friends. We got to be aware of this, right? And I think this is perfectly exemplifies largely the IDAHO4. Mrs. Jo Knapp says, my husband. Aha. Thank you for that. You're married to your husband? I think that's what you meant. Cool. So what are they being hid from, in your opinion? That's $1 million question. I don't know the answer to that, Liv. What are they being hid from? I think all I can surmise is they were targeted, by somebody or some group, right? There was all this drug running. Yes, when Pazzarotti, keeps telling you that gangbangers had it out for them, right? And he claims he takes the next step that they actually were able to carry out the hit. That's horseshit. But yes, they may have been targeted by gangbangers or cartel members because there was, again, a lot of drug running going on. We know the Aryan Knights, Aryan family were operating or do operate, in those areas, in a lot of different areas, Moscow, Idaho, Washington State, etc., right? And there's drugs running. Many people have talked about this, how the drugs run, the different locations, and that is a real reality. So those students, very well, there may have been one or more that were really targeted. And thus, U.S. Marshals, whoever, they knew who was in that house that night. The U.S. Marshals knew. They were surveilling the house. So they know who was targeting them. And that's why they extracted them. They knew they had to get them out of there. Their lives were in danger. Why exactly? What did, for example, the girls or Ethan Chapman, what did they say that potentially endangered their lives? We will never know. We will never know. But it probably had to do with drugs. It probably had to do with, or guns. Who knows? I mean, could even have to do with sex trafficking, right? Actually, when you think about it. Mrs. Junab says, we need these people in our government. Me? Who do you mean we need these people in our government? You never know who you're talking to. That's right. You never know. My husband wears his disguises. Oh, that's good. Your husband wears disguises? Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay. I gotta laugh, my friends. I love razzing this Jay Embry, Pavarotti, because, I think it was, to me, it's like a Fed move. Is this guy working for the Feds? He wears glasses, right? He only showed his eyes once to the audience, to the public, and then he made sure to always wear glasses. To me, it's ridiculous, and I think there's a reason he does that. Just many red flags on this guy. And it infuriates me that, or it doesn't infuriate me, I don't care anymore, but I was really disappointed. This guy doesn't have the courage. He doesn't have the balls to interview somebody like me. That shows you that this was an extraction removal operation. We can see it, my friends. The Feds got those students out of there. They're not in. They're long gone. They're out of the country. That's why you have 2 roommates alive. To this day, people like Pazzarotti, he can't logically tell you why Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortison were left untouched. He tried to claim, well, I guess the gangbangers intimidated them to not call 911 for at least 8 hours. Oh, really? Really? And you're not gonna take those 2 out? You're gonna leave 2 of those girls alive when they saw you going in the house, stabbing your friends? I mean, it makes no sense. He knows it makes no sense. But again, when you go hard and fast in a belief about something, or in this case, someone, then any information that I give or you give how do I explain it? Yeah, any information that you receive, if you've gone already hard and fast in a belief about something, it's only going to go to confirm your belief rather than helping you go in a different direction, if you know what I'm saying. So we got to be very careful, my friends. I went hard and fast too in believing the likes of Pazzarotti for a little while there a long time ago. But then you just use reason, logic, common sense and connect the dots, my friends, and ask yourselves. And just know there are times, should I say, people on this case of the IDAHO4, my friends, even on this amazing platform of YouTube, and I believe they're on misinformation, disinformation campaigns, right? And I'll leave it at that. So we got to be careful, folks. If you want real truth and transparency, be careful, okay? Let's provide real truth and transparency. And that's what I'm trying to do the best I can with all of you out there. I've learned so much from you guys and gals out there on this case. Many of you. And Birdie, of course, Devil's Advocates. I want to give credit and a big thank you to Lee from Devil's Advocates. He came out first on an interview he followed through and went on an interview with Ellie and I. I think it took courage on his part because nobody else has had the courage to go on an interview with Ellie and I. We've invited any YouTubers to go and creators to come on for an interview. They won't do it, but Devil's Advocates did. And we treat him with respect, and he was excellent on the live. And then Devil's Advocates, sometime afterwards, he invited me on his platform, literally on his channel, live, Devil's Advocates, pre-recorded, I should say. But he interviewed me and eventually put it on his video to the public, and it was great. And I want to thank Devil's Advocates for that. Hopefully, we'll be working more in the future. And I hope Bertie will find it in his soul and to have me on as well and show some courage, and we'll get at it. We'll do it respectful. Him and I, we can bounce ideas off one another as well. I love bouncing ideas with Devil's Advocates. So I wanted to give those guys a shout out. I want to thank Ellie, of course, my good friend Ellie, in this true crime journey as well. We've had many interviews together. Ellie, I just want to tell all of you, my friends, that she used to laugh. Ellie did. She would say it in her interview. She said, Jason, I used to laugh at you saying that the students are alive. Are you kidding me? And then Ellie said that afterwards she started connecting the dots and realized Jason's onto something. I think he's right. There's no evidence to show that they were even unalived in the first place. There's more evidence to show they're actually alive when you use reason, logic, common sense, folks. And just look, I go back to the two survivors. First of all, they're not survivors, right? If there was no crime, they're not survivors per se. But just the fact that Bethany Funk and Dylan Morrison were left in the house, right? They're not unalive. They're not stabbed to death. That shows you, my friends, that the other four then, they've got to be alive. Because no criminal, even a Brian Kohlberger, he's not going to go in and unalive four and then leave the other two and have Dylan Morrison happen to see him, even though he's wearing a mask on. You got Dylan Morrison looking at you before you leave the house, and you're just gonna leave them untouched, Dylan and Bethany. No, you wouldn't do that. No criminal who's crazy enough to stab four people and strong enough to do it somehow, miraculously able to stab four healthy, beautiful students, even if they had drinks in them, and you're not gonna leave Bethany Funk and Dylan Morrison alive. You would go after them. You have to. You can't have any witnesses. You see how ridiculous this whole thing is, my friends? How crazy and wild it is? It's all a big psyop, my friends. Now, before we go today, Lisa Hedrick says, Ellie is a good person. Yes, totally concur. She's an amazing person, I'd say. What an activist she is, too. And what a true crime personality now, too. Sharon says, where's BK? Sharon, that's $1 million question as well. Rest assured, BK will be, for the most part, out of the United States. I would guess he's probably living a beautiful life in Puerto Rico. So don't be hoodwinked by the likes of Brian Kohlberger anymore, if anybody has. Brian Kohlberger was a Fed, I believe, from the get-go. He was an FBI informant, at the very least. I think he was a federal agent, literally, as an actor. He was the perfect actor in Distraction, all this. And remember, when he was coming to court, it looked like he had a tan on him. He was obviously somewhere on a beach or somewhere with a lot of sunshine. It's ridiculous, folks. He's not, you don't have to buy into this nonsense that he's in some hardcore prison. Isn't that Embry's narrative that, Brian Kohlberger is going to be in a special facility and all this, and you hear it from corporate media? No, he's in no prison. Brian Kohlberger is in no jail, man. He's out the back door like a Jeffrey Epstein, as Ellie says. Trust me, my friends, in my opinion, Brian Kohlberger, he is long gone. And if they want to bring him in for show, for some, maybe pull a psyop somewhere in a jail system, maybe they would do that. But Brian Kohlberger is not going to be, you're never going to see a real Brian Kohlberger stabbed in jail or anything, my friends. That's nonsense. They would, if anything, it would just be total fake. Liv Levon says, my empathy for Brian's is the only that's kept me riding the fence on whether or not this actually happened. That's where they got me, laugh out loud. Interesting. Yes, that's part of the psyop, I guess I would say, Liz. They try to manipulate your perception. So they use a Brian Kohlberger, and you see this all over on Facebook, not just YouTube, and I know people like you yourself as you're describing, but on Facebook they have Brian Kohlberger groups, right? People that rightly so they have all this empathy for Brian Kohlberger, but they're missing the one. Many of them miss the one part, the crucial aspect, whereas Brian Kohlberger is just an actor, right? He's not just he's not just an innocent person that was wrongly convicted and wrongly accused. No, he's an actor in all this. It's very insidious, actually. I actually don't have a lot of empathy for Brian Kohlberg, to tell you the truth, because I know there was no crime in the first place. Brian is an actor, in my opinion. Brian is an actor, and he is a Fed. And you can see it, my friends. He wanted to enroll with the police department, folks. We all know this, right? It's public knowledge. He wanted to enroll to be a policeman or work, in forensic accounting or whatever it was. So my friends, right there, that's huge red flags. That shows you he most likely was working for the intelligence community, high up, very covert, right from the get-go, my friends. He was used for this whole IDAHO4 thing. And a lot of this was pre-planned, my friends. Just like I believe the extraction removal operation, that was somewhat pre-planned too. The U.S. Marshals, my friends, they're not lazy. They're not sitting on their ass doing nothing. They know they had surveillance around the house. Steve G tells you that as well. And yeah, they had surveillance. So they know who was targeted in the house, who could have been, possibly unalived, who had it out for them. And so the U.S. Marshals, of course, they're going to take action. That's my point, my friends. That's what the extraction removal operations are for. And all this, that Embry and others are describing out front of the house, right? And they all are describing that this is all part of the atrocity. You see, look at the assailants. They're walking out front, and then they got dumpster guy. Well, it sounds interesting, doesn't it, folks? But what I believe they're missing is those aren't assailants. There's no evidence of that. That's the feds, most likely, my friends. They're conducting the psyop, the staging. Hello? That's exactly what that was, my friends. Okay? In my opinion. And I think the facts back it up. I think BCK was paid to be the fall guy. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think if I'm correct, and I think I am, that Brian Kohlberger was working for the feds, either as an informant, and partly as this actor and all this, in this huge play theater bullshit, I think he would be getting paid. I agree with most of that statement there. Yeah, or I agree totally. I think BCK was paid to be the fall guy. But I think Mrs. Jonap, I think Brian Kohlberger, yeah, he was an informant, wasn't he? He was a Fed. He wanted to roll in the police department, and you saw his role in this case, right? The actor, and the feds, and then feds want to confuse you and say with the prosecution that they found his blood on the knife sheath, all this horseshit, right? And that's all part of the convenient narrative, as I said in many videos, right? They had to get somebody, they had to arrest somebody, and they had to arrest somebody that was from out of state. They could not take a chance arresting somebody in Moscow, Idaho, folks, right? Because it's all about giving, isn't it? It's all about getting plausible deniability from the university, right? My friends, the university, they don't want to lose all their revenue because about 85, 90% of the parents, I estimate, would not want to send their kid. They wouldn't send their kids to school if they knew even somebody was arrested in Moscow, my friends, near that university. So that's why I believe Brian Kohlberger was perfect. Again, he's from out of town, largely, Washington State. And then, of course, the blood on the knife sheath, that's more of the convenient narrative, right? You got to say, oh, yeah, we found touch DNA on the knife sheath. It's all horseshit, my friends. Again, part of the psyop. All lies. Yeah, exactly. Mrs. Jonap says, book. Why innocent people plead guilty. Book. Yeah, that's all part of the psyop, man. Anybody, and this has been talked about over and over again, with many of us that, and people that were fighting for Brian Kohlberger, and we wanted to see a trial. everybody's saying, why would you plead guilty? They have no evidence on you. Touch DNA, that could be explained away. Come on. So I want to say earlier, my friends, remember I mentioned USC Code 36, which allows the government to literally stage a violent event, again, if a confidential informant has been compromised. Well, as they use prosecutorial discretion, they use national security, but they have exemptions with under prosecutorial discretion and the Patriot Act. These are facts, my friends. This is the IDAHO4 in a nutshell, folks, if you look at it. Shelly Anderson says, probably that prison video of Brian in a single cell is fake. Thank you, Shelly Anderson. I bet you're right. You're probably absolutely correct. It's probably fake. And it's so easy for the feds to fake all this, right? Whether it be AI or pre-planning faking the video. Just like when you, now it's coming out more and more that it looks like it was faked. You know, the moans of, we're supposed to believe as Xana or Keely or Madison, one of them is being stabbed. You hear this recorded audio of moans and groans. It's all fake, my friends. There was no crime scene. Because if there was a real crime scene, my friends, if any of those students were stabbed in that house, whether it be one or more, and we were told and supposed to be told that it's 4, right? But if it happened, again, we would have seen leaked raw crime scene footage, most likely, and or autopsy photos. That's how it works nowadays, folks, in almost every high-profile case, right? And even just looking at the O.J. Simpson trial, I think it was Bertie who said he didn't even think the coroner was going to show up at the trial, if there was a trial, right, back then. And Bertie's right. I don't think the coroner would have, the feds wouldn't have been able to, they wouldn't have taken the chance to have a coroner have to show up at a show trial, because that's all it is. It's a show trial, right? You know, the students are alive. This is all fake, folks. The whole trial was a show trial, but they still could not afford to have the hearings were a show, and they didn't have an actual trial, I should say. But yeah, so let's see here. Liv Levon says, medical unit, undoubtedly handicapped, accessible toilet, etc. Medical unit, undoubtedly? I'm not sure what that means. Wow, that sounds like a crazy comment. Medical unit, undoubtedly handicapped, accessible toilet. Shelly Anderson says, and it's amazing, in the video, his haircut, he looks wonderful. Yeah, again, it's all part of the Psyop, Sharon. The haircut may have looked wonderful, but you notice they had his sides buzzed. And Ellie and her sister's a professional makeup artist. The buzz of the hair, I don't know if Ellie's sister mentioned this, but I heard a woman on Facebook say it gives a hard-ass look to him almost. And they do all this on purpose to make him look, even though it makes he look good and presentable, he look kind of hard-ass, you know. They want people to think that, they want mainstream media to think, see, Brian Kohlberger, he looks so evil. He did this crime, you know. It's just horse shit. Liv Levon says, I was agreeing with Mrs. Knapp, comment above. Oh, okay, cool. Now the family's trying to sue Brian. They are trying to make money off this. Greed. Exactly. So the whole thing, everyone, I want you to know, again, my opinions, but I think the facts back it up. The IDAHO4, this is why I keep calling it the IDAHO4 Psyop a lot. It's a Psyop. How many of you know what a Psyop is? And this is why, in part, why I want Bertie to interview me, and I want to be on Devil's Advocate show again, if he wants to do more interviews with me, and then we're going to cover different cases. But on so many cases, my friends, and just life in general, you know, if you want to have powerful, positive change in the world, it's really important to understand what a Psyop is. And as far as I know, I'm the only person that's really defining to you what a Psyop is. A lot of people get up, they use the name, which is fine, and that's cool, but people should be really, in my view, defining, educating people on what is a Psyop. How do the elites, the global financial predators out there, and sometimes the feds, for good or bad, how do they use a Psyop? You know, and how does it relate to the IDAHO4? I can tell you, my friends, anyone want to give an attempt to explain in your own words what a Psyop is? Or what you've looked up? I'm going to tell you, okay, as I'm waiting, pic of him saluting with no shirt on. For those of you, as I'm talking about a PSYOP, I'm sure you will know, a lot of you will know much of what I'm saying, but here it is. A PSYOP, psychological operations, or the back aspects of modern day psychological operations, is known by many different names and terms, right? I'm sure you've heard of propaganda, of course, right? There's hearts and minds, information warfare, and again, PSYOP, psychological operations. The military often assert confessions using a PSYOP, right? It's when you take, another way of saying it is when you take selected information and indicators to an audience. Think about Steve G and Christy G, I believe, and their daughter, my friends, some of the parents. Think about their statements. It's when you take selected information and indicators to an audience. Affect your emotions, your value systems, belief systems at times, right? And it's really, another way of saying it is, it's a military political tactic that uses communication and other non-combative means to affect the target audience emotions, attitudes, right? Behaviors. And it's ultimately, think about the IDAHO4, my friends. Think about the parents. Think about the CIA through corporate media, this highly emotionally charged narrative they kept putting out of the IDAHO4. All 4 students are stabbed, Brian Koberger's guilty, all this nonsense. So it's all about manipulating perceptions, right? And the aim of a PSYOP is to, again, it's to influence the mindset and action without using direct force, right, folks? Another way of saying or describing what a PSYOP is, it's, again, it's influencing behavior and attitudes that are favorable to the originator's objective. Who's the originator's objective in the IDAHO4, my friends? We're talking the U.S. Marshals largely, right? Elements of the FBI, elements of CIA, the ones that are running the show of this PSYOP of the IDAHO4 to try to convince you that the students, that there was this big crime on November 13, 2022, atrocity, horseshit. So that's what a PSYOP is, my friends. Yes, influencing large groups, exactly. A PSYOP, and as Liv says, government operations that influence using media propaganda, exactly, Liv, perfect. And nowadays they use social media, right, to influence using the propaganda. Back in the John F. Kennedy days, for all you amazing people there in the United States, you may realize, and I'm sure a lot of my Canadians know this, that with John F. Kennedy, back in those days, they used leaflets of propaganda. Remember Oswald? The CIA used him as the patsy. He was downtown Texas there, and he was handing out leaflets of propaganda, right? That's how they would often do a type of PSYOP using propaganda. Now it's more on social media. And they used at least three primary methods these days. They use information warfare, again, propaganda, and they use strategic messaging. Think again, Steve G, Christy G, in my opinion. Some of those parents and the children of the so-called victims, when they speak out on corporate media, my friends, and even the funerals or remember the hearings where Olivia is going on, and so a lot of times they use strategic messaging to shape public opinion and behavior. And again, you see it on the Law and Crime Network, don't you folks? On CIA corporate media, how they do strategic messaging at times, right? Again, Law and Crime Network, I had to expose them on this live. I was wanting to do this, my friends, because in my opinion, they've provided almost nothing but misinformation, disinformation, and lies when it comes to the IDAHO4, because they keep trying to convince you that an atrocity happened, yet no evidence to support that the students were even unalived, dead, right? They keep trying to convince you that Brian Koberger, they got the right guy, So Law and Crime Network, my friends, they're full of shit. And then you got Joshua, who I really like normally. He's a prosecutor. He has a YouTube channel called Courtroom Confidential. I believe his name is Joshua. He should be ashamed of himself, in my opinion, folks. This guy's lying to you, in my opinion. Because he's an intelligent guy. He knows better. He keeps trying to convince you, seemingly, that Brian did this crime and that a crime took place, that the students were stabbed. He follows the FBI CIA narrative, my friends. He never goes off it, right? He will never tell you the truth that, wait a sec, no, there were no body bags to show us the students were killed. Where's the leaked rock crime scene footage to show the students are unalive? Where are the autopsy photos? Why would Brian Kohlberger plead guilty, Joshua, when all they got is touch DNA, if you believe a crime even took place, on a knife sheath? You see, my friends, guys like him, unfortunately, I don't like him anymore because of what he's done in this case. He sold his soul, in my opinion, everyone. My opinions. He needs to take a hard look at himself in the mirror, this boy, because he knows better, in my opinion, folks. Again, he's a prosecutor, isn't he? Former prosecutor or something, right? But he's got his own YouTube channel now. He never told you the truth, in my opinion, in this case, largely, my friends. He never will tell you those students were extracted by the U.S. Marshals. Again, extraction removal operation, okay? And I wish more people would go after these dirty players, I believe, for the IDAHO4. Again, my opinions, but the facts back it up. Mrs. Joan Knapp says, totally agree with you, MSM. Thank you. Mrs. Joan Knapp says, people swatting others in gaming world. Aha. Anyways, part of a Psyop, my friends. Just real quick on finishing psychological operations, and I hope you may agree that I feel like it's important to try to educate people again on what a Psyop is. To this day, my amazing activist friend in Ottawa, Jane Scarf, she's been an activist most of her life, just like my friend Ellie. They're amazing activists. Jane Scarf, she thanks me to this day for teaching her what a Psyop is. Because as she says, it helped get her through all the fear. She's no longer feared up. She understands now, all the different Psyops that the governments are playing. She doesn't get confused anymore, largely, or not as confused. Same with me. But the big takeaway, I think, on understanding what a Psyop is, I think for a lot of people, my friends, at least my hope is, it will help people cut through the fear. You're not going to be feared up. You won't have so much uncertainty and doubt, because that's what some of the global financial predators, they want us in a continual mindset, mainly of, fear, uncertainty, doubt, and feared up, right? But you just got to understand what a Psyop is. So finally, my friends, a Psyop is a very important part of the military and diplomatic actions, taken in the United States and abroad, my friends. And a Psyop can be used to induce cooperation, which is wonderful, or unfortunately, especially with global financial predators, as I call them, the so-called elites, that they will often do Psyops to create division. We know this, right, folks? And many of you talked about it, mentioning how the governments, we see it, do Psyops, right? And it's to create division often. They're using chaos agents, right? Alternative media even, and on we go. Liv Levon says, oh, not scared, no point in that, but definitely left with zero trust in my government. Well, there you go. But the good news is, my friends, and I teach people here in Canada as well, you never have to generalize that all your cops, for example, let's just focus on law enforcement first, that work for the government often, right? In some capacity, they work for the government. But law enforcement, you shouldn't generalize that all your cops are fascist. A lot of times we make the mistake people do when they look at isolated incidents, and yes, just like any system, there are corrupt, in this case, when we're talking cops, police, there are corrupt police, we know this, and even military at times. But most of them do a great job. Most of them, they want to protect our human rights and fundamental freedoms. And we see it every day, my friends. They do amazing work. Same with our Canadian military, our amazing Canadian military, and our amazing, powerful U.S. military as well. Okay? They do awesome jobs. And I can't give enough high praises for these people, these guys and gals in the armed forces. The Navy, Army, you name it. They do amazing work. And they do great work abroad too, folks, right? And all our special forces, of course, that goes hand in. Whenever I mention the military, my friends, I'm also talking our special forces too, because those guys and gals do an awesome job. as well to protect us. And Mrs. Joe Knapp says, nothing to fear but fear itself, but government has to keep order amongst the people. Yes. Yes. Oh, and by the way, my friends, another thing about psychological operation Psyop, as I've defined in my videos at times, is that we know that a Psyop, it can be, you could target individuals, or it could be used to target certain groups, right? And again, governments will conduct psyops. Governments will even conduct psyops on other governments around the world. We know in third world countries, dangerous third world countries, they can influence government officials, for example, in other countries, right, folks? This happens all the time. So I hope it was helpful for some people out there. If more of us understand what a psyop is, psychological operations, and how they use it, right, to try to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and deceive the public, my friends, I'm telling you, we could have so much more positive change. I truly believe that if more of us understand what a psyop is. And it took me a while to do research on this and understand it myself, but I think I've got a good grasp largely of what a psyop is. And you guys and gals also help me with that too from time to time. I appreciate it as well. Okay? Yes. So I think that's all I wanted to say on the IDAHO4 today, unless anybody's got any questions for me. But you've made a lot of great comments here. Mrs. Jonap says, thank God we have such brave young men and women for serving our country. Exactly. Exactly. And I'll say it too. Thank God we have such brave young men and women in our country of the United States, or you guys in the United States, and here in Canada. Absolutely. And you better believe the Canadian military, everywhere in this country, they know that I support them and I thank them. And our police, our cops. And again, don't generalize. Please, my friends, try not to generalize that as bad as it is with corruption, with, at times with certain police forces out there or military, certain actions that are taken that, have time to time overridden human rights or freedoms. Don't generalize that they're all like this, my friends, because we see it every day that most of the time they do a great job and they want to do a great job. They want to protect us. They want to protect their own kids, for heaven's sakes. So to protect their kids and have their kids have a great lifestyle, they got to do their job, protect the public, my friends, right? And this is the great news. But the elites, they want you to generalize that, oh yeah, we're already a communist country or something, right? They're all fascists and this and that. Oh, horseshit. Well, I got to go, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your great comments. Got a few questions in. Hopefully next time you guys and gals may have some questions more for me. But I love the statements as well. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate the engagement. Thank you, Liv Levon, again. She says, I guess I should say I have no trust in large groups really running in show far above local law enforcement, etc. Fair enough, Liv Levon. I'm sorry you feel that way. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. But most of them do a great job. Liv Levon. Oh my God, Lisa hasn't heard that one. But holy shit, I can't see that. I live 30 minutes from the Columbine when it happened. Yeah, somebody mentioned the Columbine again. Well, I got to go, my friends. We'll hopefully do more videos on the IDAHO4. And my friends, if you do listen to the IDAHO4 on Law and Crime Network, I don't know how many of you already have, but please don't trust them, in my opinion, everyone. They do some good work, but on the IDAHO4, there's a lot of room to be desired, in my opinion, everyone. In my opinion, they've largely lied to the public. They're told to lie. They're told to convince you, try to convince you, that the students were actually unalived, stabbed to death by a Brian Kohlberger. First of all, Brian Kohlberger didn't do it, and nobody did it, because there wasn't any unaliving. The students are alive, they are protected, they're living beautiful lives. And by the way, my friends, here's the proof to bring it home. Christy G. Remember I told you times the parents say too much, my friends? She wasn't supposed to say this, I don't think, but as she's rambling on in one of her interviews, and Bubbly Waters, the amazing YouTube creator, Bubbly Waters, she caught this, my friends, and I talked about it in my videos, and I showed the clip. Christy G literally said that Maddie just bought a new house. And we know what word she was going to finish with. House, right? Maddie just bought a new house. So Maddie just bought a new house. Christy G blurted it out. And you know what happened, friends? Within seconds or about a minute later or so, she left the interview room. And my friend Ellie said they probably went like this to her. Cut, get out of here. She blurted it out. So apparently, my friends, under the WITSEC program, Federal Witness Security Program, which I believe all 4 students are under, you can buy a new house and have a whole new lifestyle, of course, folks. That's what it's designed for, the WITSEC program. You can actually buy a house. That's what Maddie's done, my friends. She's not 6 foot under. She wasn't stabbed to death by any gangbangers, cartel members, or a Brian Koberger, because they had surveillance around the house. The U.S. Marshals had surveillance, I should say, around that house. They knew what was going on, my friends. Plus, the students, 1 or more, were working with the feds. So they know they had to protect them, my friends, right? Just like we know that they had surveillance on the parents, too. So I think that's the truth of this case, my friends. And we haven't been told the truth, and we just got to talk amongst each other. Question, are you JLR's twin brother? No, I'm more handsome than JLRS, and I'm more fit than JLRS. But thanks for the question. I think the only thing we have in common is the bald look, but I think my head might be rounder than JLR. Maybe we have similar eyebrows, but thank you for your observation there, whatever you think that we might be twins. No, we're not twins. And JLR is another YouTuber, unfortunately, that I believe has provided misinformation, disinformation, misleading the public on the real truth of the IDAHO4. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. Kind of suspect he might be. He should know better, because he kept going on and on about Brian Koberger, being guilty, didn't he? And he never told you that, wait a sec, there's no evidence to show the students are unalive. There's no body bags, no raw crime scene footage showing you a crime took place, because it didn't take place. And that's why Dylan Morris and Bethany Funk were not touched, because it's all a big psyop. JLR should know that. I left him comments on his channel trying to knock some sense into that guy. Jeez. But a lot of these people make money, it seems, my friends. That's all they care about. I don't know if JLR is one of them, but I hope not. But you got a question. Got to go, my friends. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you subscribe and share this video, would you? Maybe help me get some new subscribers. Once I get to 1,000, speaking of money, I can monetize my channel. Even though I condemn people that are just about the money and don't want to provide full truth in this case, obviously, I would like to make some money if people want to contribute. But right now, I don't even have a donation page set up, so I'm not going to go there anymore. But I really appreciate your support, my friends, for being here, your engagement, for caring about humanity, and hopefully wanting the truth of the IDAHO4. And I believe the real truth, again, is all 4 of those beautiful students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Logan, her best friend, they were besties, right? And Xander Canuto and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapman, they are absolutely alive, and they're absolutely protected under WITEC, the WITSEC program. And they were extracted in those late hours on November 13, 2022. And everything else, my friends, is staging, it's theater. The feds were trying to manipulate your perceptions, my friends, right? That's my opinions, but the facts back it up. And any YouTuber tells you otherwise, they're wrong or they're deliberately lying to you, possibly. IDAHO4, they traveled around the world, maybe as undercovers. Oh, brilliant comment. I never thought of that. They may be traveling around the world as undercovers. Yeah, they may be acting as undercover agents themselves. Kaylee Gonzalez, she's one sharp cookie. Maybe she's working as... who knows, in the IT world as an undercover working for the feds, or in different ways as an agent. I wouldn't be surprised. She's definitely alive, in my opinion. And Madison Logan, she was very intelligent. Again, Maddie's bought a new house. So I bet Kaylee will be going in that new house from time to time. I bet the feds have some sort of arrangement where Kaylee and Madison, hopefully, these 2 besties they were besties since they were little girls, apparently, right? Since kindergarten. Very special story between the 2 of them. I hope, anyways, they get to see each other with their new lifestyle, and I bet they will, my friends. So we don't have to buy in, we shouldn't be hoodwinked anymore, in my opinion, everyone. Don't buy into the lies and bullshit. I bought into the lies and bullshit. I was hoodwinked for the first year and a half. Then when I started digging in the case more, like others, I started realizing, connecting the dots. Wait a sec. No, they're alive, man. It's all show. It's all bullshit, what we've been told, largely. So I'm sure a lot of you seem to agree. Thank you. Have a great day or evening wherever you are. And my friends, feel free next time. Tell me, where are you from? Where are you? And I hope you subscribe and give me a like. Thanks, everyone. It helps with the algorithms, by the way, when you subscribe, right? Give the thumbs up, hitting the bell icon, even leaving comments. Apparently, it all helps to get the videos out and ultimately to you guys and gals. God bless. Love you. See ya. Now I got to remember how to end the lives, and I forget. Let's see if I can figure this out. Bye, everybody. We're going to end it. Okay. Bye, everyone.